get them together. Let's give them a round of applause. So the Harvest and I just show up when we told. But it's something that we always do, and Ed is double billed today, so I'm gonna ask him to go first. Before I do, I want to welcome the sheriff. Thank you, for being here, and appreciate you always coming for events. Yeah. And with that, folks, we just finished our one-day legislative session last Tuesday, and I'm trying to forget it. What we're gonna do is start off with the harvest, and then I'm gonna ask Representative Hughley, and then Representative Faulkner, talk a little bit maybe about the budget, whatever they don't talk about. So with that, Ed, you kick us off.
Thank you so much. And first of all, let me thank you all for coming here and being active participants in the governmental process and expressing interest in what we do under the Gold Dome every day. And we certainly appreciate that. So we don't want to go out of here without noting that, because it's just so important. You could be speaking to the walls and it's not getting it, but at least you're trying to communicate with us, and we're trying to communicate with you. And for that, we're thankful. And let me say this above all, I just really want to say I work with the best legislative delegation in the General Assembly. Let's get they really they always, I'm the oldest, I think, but they treat me like I'm the baby, because I knew what they said. But they really are always on it. I mean that sincerely. They're on it. If I drop the ball a little bit, they pick it up and carry it across the goal line. So I mean that. I'm very sincerely appreciative of that. Mayor, it's good to see you again. How you doing? I'm Mayor. It's always good to see you. Let's give up for the Mayor. But let me say this, and I'll do my piece, and I like to offer my apologies for having to leave early, but I made another appointment, and I really appreciate you being understanding of that. We had a very contentious legislative session, to say the least. Contentious in the sense that we had a lot of hot topics going on at the same time, one after another. And I'm going to let the people who actually, the architects of those issues, talk to you in depth about it. But of course, we know about all of the things about the voting. It was huge. I served on the ethics committee, which I don't know why we got that piece, but I served on the ethics committee in the Senate, and we discussed that thing over and over again. It made national news, and we, as far as I'm concerned, we still came out of it not quite pleased with where we went in that conference, because I think the whole thing is about having confidence, having sincere belief that when I cast my ballot, I don't care whether you're black, white, man or woman, Democrat or Republican, if I cast my ballot, at least it's going to be counted, and I can feel secure in that knowledge. And I think that's what we were trying to get. And I know we fought that fight, and we didn't quite get there, but we, just because we lose one battle, we keep moving, okay? So that was one of the battles. The other thing was about abortion, and as I said, I let the people who really got down, and where the rubber meets the road, got down and thought that it was just a highly emotional, highly charged issue in the Georgia General Assembly. I mean, it was almost mutiny in the House, almost. I mean, because that bill, am I right? It was almost mutiny because it was such a highly charged issue, and it's never going to go away. And it comes up year after year after year in one form or another. And then another thing, God, guns, what was the other? God, guns, and well, whatever. But the idea of it is that it comes in cycles. Every year, God, guns, and abortion. God's going to open up again. And it never goes away. It comes back in one form or the other. So, but that means you have to be ready, because it is not a battle that we're in. So, right? That's bubblegum. It just comes in. It comes back in one form or another. So, that I'll let the people who really got down and got on those committees and fought those battles along with myself get more into it, and I would like to excuse myself and go to previously announced engagement. But I really, really appreciate being here, part of the delegation, and I'm honored to just be here. Thank you all. God bless you.
We was off the chain anyway.
Yeah, you lost your head. That's my leader.
Thanks.
God bless you. Thank
You represent the Hughes thing?
I guess I'll move over.
Come on over and join.
Join the house.
Yes,
Let me just say good evening to everyone and thank you all for being here and thank you all for allowing us to serve you as the Columbus delegation to the Georgia House of Representatives, now that the senator is gone. This was a very contentious year. And partly because the governor got in office and he decided he wanted to fulfill his campaign promises. And so we expected many of the things that we saw. He said that he was going to pass, he wanted to sign the most restrictive abortion bill in the country. And he's going to manage to do that if he signs that bill. He also said that he wanted to do the voting machines, and he is going to be able to sign the voting machine measure that he wanted. And then this governor also wanted to do vouchers. And vouchers was the one thing that he did not get accomplished this year, but stay tuned for next year. Because we're going to see that next year. So, and then the other thing was having to do with healthcare. And of course, the Republicans don't like to use the word Medicaid expansion. They want to use waivers. And so the governor has been given the authority to use a Medicaid waiver. So those are the big things. And then they wanted to take over the Atlanta airport. And those were the big things and the things that caused the most controversy and heartache as we went through the legislative session. I want to thank you all for being involved. We had some members who were there when we were on particular issues. I know Ms. Lassiter was there, expressing her rights as a citizen and letting us know what she thought about some of the things that were going on. We appreciate that. So, you want to talk about abortion? Go ahead, I'll talk about healthcare. Okay, so school vouchers. Okay, so the abortion bill was one of the most hotly contested bills of the legislative session. And when you look at it, regardless how you feel about the subject, when you look at the legislative piece, the legislative piece does not make any sense. It's not something that can be implemented. How many of you all think that we can count the unborn in the census? And how many of you think that we can count the unborn on your taxes at the end of the year? Well, those are two of the provisions of the bill that was passed. So, so it was just a hardcore political move. It was not about what people traditionally fight about on abortion bills. And, we've had several since I've been in the legislature, but this one was so far out of the bounds of what you would normally expect. And it says that whenever there is a fetal heartbeat, then you can no longer have an abortion after that point. Well, ladies, most of you know that, and the period is within about 6 weeks. So ladies, most of you know that you don't know that you're pregnant in the first 6 weeks. And, some people might not know they're pregnant until maybe 9 or 12 weeks, depending on the regularity of your menstrual cycle. So that was the first thing. And they say whenever that could be detected, then you could no longer have an abortion. And they did not want to make exceptions for rape or incest. And so that's what I'm saying. It was just a purely political bill that we want to have this on our scorecard and we want to make points with the ultra conservative on the right. And that's what the bill is about. One of the opponents on the other side, the gentleman came to speak to me, and I said, have you really looked at the bill? And he said, no. I said, well, you need to look at the bill, because he was trying to take me to Sunday school, and I said, well, the Bible says, come, let us reason together.
Right.
And this bill is not reasonable. And it does not make sense as legislators for us to put forth a piece that we know cannot be implemented, that we know the lawsuits are going to come. We're going to be spending money that we could be spending on other things, defending a bill that's indefensible. So that's the long and short version of the abortion bill and of the abortion debate. People were very energized and stressed out. People were very energized, and they were very concerned about that particular bill. But that's a subject that you're not going to change somebody's mind once it comes to the floor. And I was very concerned that regardless of what you think about it, it has to be reasonable. If you're going to put forth a piece of legislation, it has to be reasonable. It has to be something that can be implemented. And this was not. It failed on every test. You cannot implement such a thing. And so that is the reason why the women of the legislature were so upset about it, because it was just so blatant in terms of what they were attempting to do.
Doesn't she do a good job explaining
Right.
that?
Oh,
yeah.
That's what she gave to me. I serve on the appropriations and on rules and on insurance. And if Mrs. Murray doesn't mind, I'll talk about my little part of the budget, which was the healthcare part of the budget, because I think we did some pretty good things in our part of the budget. One of the things that we did earlier in the year, and I'm sure you've all heard about it, Mercer Medical School is coming to Columbus.
Yeah.
And that's going to be very exciting for us because it's going to allow them to train doctors for Southwest Georgia. And it's going to introduce them to our part of the state, and we'll have a greater likelihood that they want to stay in our part of the state and become a part of the Southwest Georgia area. So that's one of the positive things that's coming to Columbus. Also, we funded 2 new federally qualified health centers. One is going to be in Screven County and one's going to be in Chatham County. And these centers provide very important healthcare services for low-income citizens throughout the state. And we have a federally qualified health center here in our area as well, and they do a wonderful job. So we were excited to see that. The budget provides $513,000 for Champions for Children's program, and our friends over at Easter Seals were excited about that, and they were very concerned about that. And we know that they do such a great job providing for our children with disabilities at Easter Seals, so we were happy with that. And I see Ms. Johnson back there, and we took care of their business. And of course, she's with the Cancer Coalition, and so we took care of their business in the budget as well. We increased the funding for nursing homes, and we did an additional increase to the personal needs allowance for residents of nursing homes. and that was good. And Morehouse School of Medicine is in the budget, and one of the big things is that our part of the budget had to do with maternal mortality. Because as you know, the statistics in Georgia are terrible, and we need to do something to improve where we are in terms of our standing. And so Morehouse School of Medicine is going to create a center of excellence on maternal mortality, and we've given them a $500,000 appropriation to do that. And they're also in our budget for another $5 million to offset the reduction in federal funds. So they're going to be a very important part of that maternal mortality solution. And also the Department of Health has been given about $1 million to screen and to treat for maternal depression. And that's something that we don't necessarily think about. But when we look at the fact that we have several counties in Georgia where there's no place for you to go to have a baby. And the medical professionals are not there, and that's why it's so important that Mercer is coming to this part of the state. These things are going to help us move the needle on maternal mortality, and we're excited about that. And we're also put some monies in for maternal mortality review committee, because we got to understand why this is happening so that we can put the resources in the right places to attack this very important problem. The only other thing I'll mention, and Senator Harbison mentioned it briefly, but Senator Harbison and Senator Robinson and I were part of the founding group of the Voting Rights Caucus, and we worked on a bipartisan basis to look at where we are with our elections in this state. And we're going to continue that work because our goal is to see that elections are administered consistently. So it doesn't matter where you are in the state of Georgia, the voters should have the same experience. If they walk into a polling place in Tarleton or here at this library, their experience should be the same. And the way the elections are handled by our election officials, they should be following the same rules, they should have the same requirements, they should have the same procedures in place. So that is what we're going to continue to look at. Of course, we looked at the voting machines. All the experts said that hand-marked paper ballots was the way to go, but the majority party decided to get a touch screen that's similar to what we have, but it will indeed print out a ballot for you to look at, and then you have to put it into the optical scanner. The concern is that when it prints out that ballot, in many cases, there is a barcode, and the barcode is what the scanner reads. And the question is, are we certain that what is on that paper and what's in that barcode is what the voter intends? And so that was the controversy regarding that. But that's the system that we're going to have, and we will wait and see what happens. And that's the other reason why it's so important for us to make sure that elections are administered consistently, so that everybody can have more confidence in the outcomes of those results. So I'm going to yield to my colleagues and let somebody else talk to you.
Thank you for being here, and it was a contentious and hectic and very interesting session. I serve on the Retirement Committee, Natural Resources, Ways and Means, and State Properties. And just to get the first ones that are easy out of the way, State Properties didn't have a whole lot of business this time other than the usual conveyances and transfers of state property to other agencies, which is something that happens every year. And so that was the major work of that committee. In the retirement committee, the bills are introduced the first year, and then over the summer, they go for an actuarial study to see what the actual cost of that retirement bill will be to the system or to the state. And then we will discuss them next year when we have the cost information. So that's what happened in that committee. Ways and Means, I had some interesting conversations about a lot of different things, but one of the things that we did deal with very early on in the session was the fact that the federal government has not sent any relief assistance to Southwest Georgia where Hurricane Michael hit. So the FEMA funds or any of the farm funds have not come through. An additional $10 million was put in our state budget and some changes to our tax laws to allow them to be able to pull those down and use them and claim them, and them not be claimed as an increase to their income in the same way as if they were working a new job. It would be more of a tax credit, or so that they would be able to get that funding, use it to make their, like replant trees or to do cleanup or kind of reestablish themselves. So that was one of the first things that we did, was change some of the rules so that that would be easier for those farmers to use. And we also sent a strong message to Washington that they need to help them out. They're in need very much. One of the other things, I serve on the bipartisan and bicameral, which means it's senators and House members, Democrats and Republicans, rural caucus. And so we were very involved in the tax relief for the farmers, but we've also been very involved for a number of years about the broadband issue in the parts of the state that are not covered, that do not have internet access. One of the things we learned is that the EMCs, which are already the rural electric companies or corporations that are already out in the rural areas, have access to the people that need the broadband. They know where they live and they have, you know, electricity going to their houses. So if they could be given authorization to help facilitate the broadband services going into those homes or businesses, that it just would make sense, but the law did not allow for that. So we finally did pass a law, a bill on the last night of the session to allow the EMCs to have the authorization to either offer those services or partner with existing companies to be able to offer those services in the rural areas. So we feel like that's going to be a real game changer for rural Georgia, and I'm excited about that. Not to elaborate more on the abortion or fetal heartbeat bill, but I do think it was interesting because I think Representative Hughley did an excellent job, but we're also on another caucus that deals with the issues that affect working families. In our last meeting of the session, we invited the census officials to come and talk to us about the Census 2020 and how important it is that we make sure everyone's counted and how to set it up so that we can make that happen back in our communities. And so the question was asked, how are we going to count these babies that are not born yet? Because that's a provision of the law. And they said that they didn't know how they would be counted because two requirements to be counted in the census is date of birth and gender. And if it's too early in the birth process, the gender is not known yet. So I do think that bill's not reasonable. I think it's a great way to put it, and I think it's going to create some real legal battles for the state. The other thing that I spent a great deal of time working on with our caucus is we knew from the get-go that this governor was not at all interested in Medicaid expansion. And all of us see that as a wonderful way to cover people who need health care insurance. The federal government is giving 90% of the money used for that coverage, and the state makes up 10%. We've missed several years of pulling that money down, and other states have been doing it. The waivers that many states are doing are anywhere from 65 to 75% federal dollars, with the states having to kick in 25 to 35%, which is not anywhere near as good a deal as 90-10 in my book.
Right.
So we were trying to propose to the Health Access Committee, the Health Committee, to anybody that would listen to us, that Medicaid expansion just really makes the most sense. And we finally decided that what we would do is write a bill that would look like Medicaid expansion, that would be asking for a waiver. So you would get Medicaid expansion by way of a waiver. And we proposed that. We didn't get our way, but we did have a healthy conversation. Healthy conversation. What we ended up with, I was disappointed. I was not surprised, but disappointed. And what we are doing is we are giving the governor the authority with absolutely no oversight from the House or the General Assembly to say we like that, we don't like that, which is bothersome. He will hire a consultant that will explore opportunities for waivers. The waivers will be for people that are within the 100% federal poverty level. We were asking for it to be a higher level. We wanted it to be 138% of the federal poverty level, which is about a family of four is in the $24,000 range of income. So that we're still going to have a big gap of the people that are at 100% to the 138%. We had suggested with our expansion through waiver plan that they would, if they were between 100 and 138%, it would be very much like Peach Care for Kids, and they would pay based on income. Everybody's used to that. They're familiar with it. It's work. It's a fair process. There's skin in the game, as people like to say, that they have some kind of responsibility. But there were no takers for that idea. So we will have to wait and see what waivers they apply for. I feel like there will still be a gap when the waivers are applied for in service to people that need coverage. And the real thing for all of us that have ever worked in healthcare, and I'm looking around and I know several in the room have, the reason that we have a doctor shortage, or the reason we have hospitals closing, is because they don't have paying patients. They have patients, and if we would expand Medicaid, we would be able to have patients utilize their services that they can provide and get paid. And we need to be real clear that this is a way to cover patients, but it's a way to keep providers in business as well. So the other thing that happened, and this is kind of interesting to me because I sat next to the sponsor of the bill, and I've just followed this legislation. Well, and it may seem out of sync with what I've been talking about, but you probably heard some conversation about the rape kits. And in Georgia, we had rape kits that were sitting on shelves and they weren't going back and looking at them. And then there were a lot of them that were just being done away with. Well, Scott Holcomb is the representative that has been carrying that and doing a great job with it. And he was able to get a law passed that they will keep the rape kits for up to 50 years. They're little packets, so it won't take up a bunch of space, and they don't go bad, and all the things that people said that they couldn't do. But that will be a wonderful thing for our law enforcement to have as an opportunity to use that information to solve some crimes that need solved. So I think while we did some things that will hurt people, that one I think will end up helping some people, hopefully. And then just quickly, and then I'll be quiet and let you talk. We were able to do, I received a lot of emails from people about step therapy for their medicines, where the insurance company tries to get you to take a medicine that doesn't work to prove that it doesn't work, and then they'll let you step up to the next one and get to the one that really does work. So we passed some legislation to hopefully take care of that. If the medicines working, the insurance company should cover it. And so that's a good piece of legislation. And then the surprise billing, a lot of people ask about that. That is a bill that's been in play for a couple of years. If people are really unhappy when they leave, particularly the emergency rooms, and they've got a lot of bills coming in from a lot of different places, and they're surprised that the bills are so high and that they got so many. And that was discussed again this year, but it did not move. So that's still out there and something that we'll probably talk about next year. And I think that's it.
Very thorough.
Thank you.
You know, she mentioned this stuff there, Phil first. Yeah, that was on y'all's agenda for city for several years, and I was just thrilled this year with Chairman Cooper and the office. But that's something that would, you know, get people to accelerate to, you know, the medicine, you know, that process in terms of getting the tier of medicine as expensive as medicine can get. So the step therapy is a good step in the right direction. Representative Hughley and Senator Harbison and Representative Butler have done just a yoga's job of highlighting most of the things that, in fact, a lot of things that I was going to talk about, and especially the budget. But I want to thank Representative Hughley. She is on the Community Health Corporations Committee, and I serve on higher ed, and we work very closely because I'm very much involved with the Morehouse School of Medicine and Valley University School of Medicine here in Columbus. And Morehouse is here as well, but it's going to have a physical plant. But the Mercy situation will be full mid school with the building and physical plant. So that's something that being a resident of Columbus, y'all should watch eagerly to see how it progresses. I'm on the Rules Committee, Appropriations and Higher Ed, having served as chair of Rules and former chair of Higher Ed. I enjoy both of those committees, and Representative Hughley and I both own Rules, and I consider Rules the gateway to the General Assembly. It's a committee that sets a calendar each day to decide what new bills will be debated and will not be debated. And I also serve on the Transit and Governance Committee. And of course, our main responsibility is to pass the budget. In fact, that's our only constituted mandate is to pass the budget. Everything else, legislation brings forth. Those are 2,000 or 3,000 bills, which some we pass and some we don't. So HB 31 was the 2020 fiscal year budget, which starts July 1 and ends June 2020, and almost $28 billion. And plus a large share of that, 5% of every dollar is staying on education. And education, K through 12, and higher ed, large segment of our budget. And it goes down to 22% for health and human services, 8% for public safety, 8% for transportation and economic development, and 7% for general governmental agencies. And Representative Hughley mentioned the maternal mortality. That was a major victory for those of us who always deal with the maternal mortality issue and joined it. But the money to go to Morehouse School of Medicine was a double plus for us. Morehouse School of Medicine has been involved in that issue, and Dr. Rice is pleased to be able to have that fund so they can advance studies on maternal mortality. The other big issue of the budget, of course, is teacher pay raises. And I think this is the largest pay raise in history. Roselle Miller doing a 24% pay raise on a staggered, I think, over 4 years. But this pay raise cost nearly the total amount that we put in education out of the $1 billion we spent, $550 billion of that $1 billion went into education. And that covered the $3,000 pay raise that Governor had said that he wanted to do in the campaign. And then the other funds made up of QBE and most of the programs that will tell you, we've been wrestling with full funding education. I remember, in fact, I was the governor's floor leader when Joe Frank Harris, we had a commission to develop QBE, quality basic education. We had never fully funded it. And then last year, I think it was right at $600 million, which is a major appropriation because of the way the budget works. It's just really a carryover. If you had $1 billion, $500 million in your budget as an agency, when you roll next year, it's almost the same. And so what people are always fighting for is that forecasting, that, what is going to be the amount of money that we get is called new money. And this year was about $1.1 billion. So you can see when you put almost $600 million into one appropriated agency, then it gets really, really tense and tough to get money into the state budget. So, but teachers' pay raise was included. We also included money for certified bus drivers and others that work in the school system. We gave them a 2% pay raise and also a 2% pay raise to state employees. Every one penny is 1% is $60 million. So we calculate pay raise. One that we gave to employees about $120 million cost. We also put monies into our charter schools. House Bill 131 included $3.5 million in existing money for charter schools to have up to $100,000 per school. And we also created money to give grants to our school systems for security purposes. You all can read it in the newspaper. I thought I saw that. Oh, this year. The board chairman of the School County School working very closely. They will be providing grant money to security our school system, And I noticed that the school system is now, I think, employing their police department in security. So a lot of that money is going to be so that the school system can provide those security for the school system. Muscogee County. The only other thing I want to mention is the transit bill, which did not make it. We spent a year developing a ATL in Atlanta, which gave us a collaborative of 10 counties and trying to expand MARTA to all of those counties. Georgia spent about $3 billion to spend in cars on congestion. I can get from the capital to my house on the Lincoln Creek faster than I can get from downtown to the Sonoma Bank on 400. Think about that. Get home, Columbus, Georgia, before I get to a bank in Atlanta. I shouldn't have that congestion. If you drive to Atlanta, I don't have to tell you that. You know it. I don't care if it's Monday, Sunday, Tuesday, whatever day it is. You come through Atlanta, 75, 85, you ready and be patient and simple a while. So we're still working on that. And what really, really disappointed us, we had a referendum for Gwinnett County. Gwinnett County is our fastest growing county in the state of Georgia. And lo and behold, they defeated the MARTA referendum to bring MARTA and transit to Gwinnett County. And, it was a standalone referendum, which is not good. And had it been a general populated referendum, I think things would have been fine. But when you sit alone, it's just hard to explain the story. So hopefully, then amazingly, there was a move on. And I remember the Representative Hughley's comment in the Rules Committee was there was a gentleman that wanted to amend a law and stated that you could not have another referendum to 2026.
Mm.
And he called it in his comment, now this is his comment, we need a cooling off period. And Representative Hughes said, that's a long time to have to cool off. That'd be 7 years. What went on out there that we didn't even hear about? But we kind of got that taken care of, and that was shuffled. In fact, it was going to be riding on another bill, but the leadership needed that bill for something else to ride.
Mm.
So he was pushed to the side. So that didn't make it. So, but transit is major. So we created that, the ATL. We said, if you do this for Atlanta, why can't you do it for the Columbus, for the maintenance? So for the family, why don't you try to do the healthcare, workforce development, job creation, economic development?
Mhm.
So that's what we did. We went and found the Columbus, maybe Columbus, Augusta, Albany, all the counties that had a lot of counties contiguous to them across the state, and we created a hub, with Columbus being a hub for this region. And what we're going to do is have a transit system that would identify and help people get to Columbus to come to work.
Mm.
People in rural Georgia spend 20% of their disposable income getting to work.
Mm.
People in Atlanta spend 7% of their disposable income getting to work.
Mm.
So you can see the difference. It's harder to get to work in a rural area, in an area like Columbus or Maryland. It's harder to get to work than it is in Atlanta, because you spend more to get there. So we were hopeful, and but we passed the bill. I think it was 160 something, 6 or 8, and it got to the Senate and never got hearings,
Mm-hmm.
never had a vote.
Mm.
We were just stunned. And that carried on to the last day of the session, and a conference committee was put together with the airport, the rural transit, and the transit bill. All three of them were together, and which I served on that conference committee, 3 members from the House and 3 from the Senate, and we met one time,
Mm-hmm.
and we knew then it was.
Then it was a poison pill.
It was on. He was a poison pill, you know, it was dead anyway, but that was one of the biggest disappointments for me after having worked for a full year. And I went to Atlanta saying that transit will be my main issue, and number 2, the defeat of taking over Atlanta Airport.
Right.
For the state of Georgia to try to run the Atlanta Airport is absolutely nonsense.
Mm.
And the 3 best airports in America run by cities, the 3 worst airports in America run by
States.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, it just does not make sense. From a bonding capacity, Georgia is AAA, the airport is AA, 2 AA. For the state to take on the bonded debtness of the airport, the lower the credit rating of the state.
Mm.
And our best tool in Georgia, don't let anybody tell you that, the best tool we have in Georgia is our credit rating.
Mm.
You don't have good credit, that's why at your house. If you don't have good credit, you're gonna have a problem sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about the state of Georgia having bad credit.
Mm-hmm.
That means you can't issue bonds.
Mm.
If you can't issue bonds, the state is not going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an area that we're going to continue to watch, and it's still there. And I contend that a study committee should be like a 3-legged stool. It should have the governor's office, House, and the Senate. Those 3 legs hold up the stool.
Mm-hmm.
This stool had only 1 leg.
Mm.
So a stool can't stand with 1 leg.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the Senate. There was no House representation on it. And further point, there was no one from Atlanta on the study committee.
Mm.
No one from the House, no one from the Senate, Atlanta, Georgia on the study committee. So, you know, so hopefully we'll, I feel a little bit good about it. The governor spoke yesterday at the Rotary Club and said it's a good thing that it did pass, hopefully. That's a sign that when we get back next year, it will not pass. So that's basically it for the session. We did have the medical cannabis bill that we passed, and allowing the growth of marijuana for medical purposes and being turned into THC oil to be used for health purposes. And that did pass. So, but that's it. And I want to thank y'all on behalf of the delegation for coming. And I love working with both of these ladies and the gentleman that was here and our entire delegation. And, but this year we had a quieter delegation session. Not much going on. We can tell that some members were absent, but it was a quieter session. And here goes there. We enjoy working together and always have enjoyed working together. And I want to commend them on what they do on the city, on behalf of the state of Georgia. It's no easy task serving in Georgia. Tough job. Only 40 days, but it's 80 nights. So with that, I'll stop. And y'all have any questions, just say your names and ask your questions. We'll try to answer best we can.
I actually have two questions. My name is Mike Evans. Yes, I did the electrical. I taught for 35 years, decided to run last year. And I appreciate all the good work that you do, trying to be to understand better the stresses and strains that you go. Two questions, one of which first was, I believe there was a bill in the House and also in the Senate that would allow teachers who are retired to come back full-time without penalty to their retirement, but they would have to pay on their teacher retirement system part. Did either one of those clear?
They are going to be studied. There'll be an actuarial study done on them to see what they'll cost, and then we'll talk about them next year. The issue right now, teachers can retire, come back and teach 20 hours or half-time, and this is going to change that to where they will be able to teach full-time. And some people have real concerns that that's double dipping. There are some people that have concerns that that'll adversely affect the retirement system. So one of the bills requires that the school system that hires the person would pay into the retirement system. The other one has a different mechanism. So we're going to look at both of those bills. Both of them have been sent for study because they'll impact the retirement system in the state differently.
And just as a side note, I retired in 2011, but I came back out for time 5 times.
Wow.
Nice.
The second time I was able to, because of the way it's structured, I could come back full time, but I had to pay my part of retirement. In the retirement system, I really didn't have a problem with that, given that I was able to continue with my time. So I hope it's something to be positively considered.
There's a real concern that a lot of the retired teachers have some skill sets that we are short of. Because they've not had people that are going to college and becoming trained teachers in some of the subject areas where teachers have retired. So it will be looked at. There's not anybody on the committee that's dead set against it. Both mechanisms have different funding, and they're going to look at both of them and see what can be better for the system. You don't know what it is.
And the other one is actually a combination comment question, I guess. I've got two things that I'm super concerned about as a special education situation. How do you supply with the no teacher feedback and this? But another thing that I'm very concerned about, and it has begun at this time of the year, is the testing situation. And I've been talking to Dr. Lewis here about the local research, because there's some 29 tests that are given locally, not all everyone. Say that. But there's a tremendous amount of testing coming from the state level that it does go away. And I say that from a teacher standpoint as well as from a teaching standpoint. You have 6 weeks at the start of the school year and 6 weeks that never have begun last week that go on. And kids when get so upset with that, get so frustrated with the teacher. And once it's over with, the older kids know what's going on. They just kind of get back and say, it's over. And tread water for the school. I think that, and I'm saying it's not as a school board member, but as a concerned citizen. I believe believe that we can lose 3 weeks on each unit without problem.
Amen.
Just looking at knowing what those tests, measuring what they did. Because there's so much else that needs to be taught, has to be taught. Pacing guys that drive teachers. I also work for CSU. I work for CSU, visit teachers all over the state. And I can go into any classroom in biology or chemistry. And they're pretty much within 1 day of all over the state. Well, on one hand, that's good. On the other hand, it's like what's the fellow back in the Revolutionary or whatever, Spanish American War did.
Mhm.
The Philippines, supposed to be there.
Mhm. All right.
So
Very good.
you lose a lot of kids. We have a lot of discipline problems as a consequence. We need to be able to restructure how we teach people, how we teach kids,
Mhm.
so that we can teach them different things and more in depth and pay more attention for those who need more attention. We've got the testing is an absolute demon.
Mm.
It's a demon. There's no good reason to test as much.
Amen.
I don't disagree with you.
Yes,
Uh,
and I'm not blaming you
I
guys.
know it's wrapped up into the higher ed hierarchy in terms of curriculum and how you go about doing it. Most of this is policy driven, not statutory law.
Right.
So, but I think we ought to keep the, and I admire anybody to teach. I taught for 1 year.
Mhm.
I do then.
Right.
And I'm out here. 1 year, so that's my teaching career. But any other members of that?
I agree with you, particularly for our younger students.
Oh, yeah.
The whole household is just in an uproar. And then it takes so long before the results come back, and the results come back that the child has to retest. Then mama's all excited and worried and want to know why did my child not pass this test, or what do we need to do? And so that gets the children all upset, because mama's upset because they didn't meet whatever the measure was. So I think that, as education policy, we have gone a little overboard and we've gone too far. We do need to have some way to assess where students are and to assess whether or not they're growing. But we're to the point that the tests have taken over what happens the rest of the school year. And then after the testing is done, then nothing else happens.
Exactly, and here's the thing, and you do hit on it, and that is the only test that is worth the time it takes to take it is the one that we give us for over a course of a day or so at the start of the school year and a day or so at the end of the school year.
Mhm.
The change, how much the child's changed is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, some kids can be brought up 3 or 4 grade levels, some kids can be brought up from not able to read to reading it a year and a half later. It's just, any test that is a snapshot is a shot in the dark.
Mm.
And you don't know what happened before, and you don't know what happened after, you only know what happened on that day. And it could be influenced by a list of stuff. It needs to be changed, it needs to be, as you say, it needs to be a change over time. And that is all that matters, particularly since we're impacting teachers with the outcomes of some of these tests. And that is absolutely ridiculous. That any teacher should be affected by the Christmas, we call it in education, as a teacher, we call it Christmas tree. You take that sheet and you just blow it off. If it looks pretty, and it happened more than once. It happened.
Oh, I'm very well aware of what happened with one of my sons.
You're in the right spot now, Mike, keep pushing that issue. Congratulations on your.
Well, I intend to, and I ask you all at the state level to do what you can about the state test.
And let's talk about it more. Y'all want to be with, as I told board chair, we have to meet with y'all. You said the same thing.
Yes.
Since we're on education,
Run around this here, has everybody say their name?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Since we're on education, were there any discussion about a whole 2.0, in reference to the casino bill?
Well, since there's no casino,
Mm.
we got, it's just, casino bill got away. Once horse racing started bubbling up, and then the casino aspect of it started dissipating. We had one shot at the casino bill, one time that was open with Elder Deal. And he gave us notion that he would not oppose it.
Mhm.
And that's all we were saying, let people decide
Mhm.
and give them the right to referendum.
Mhm.
But this year, it just did not bubble up. And then even the horse racing, because it was industry related,
Mhm.
and the horse racing kind of fell by the wayside as well. So there was no revenue source. We had gotten, campus, not campus, casino designated resorts, Reverend Hugh Glenn, that time, Darlene Abrams, and the House Democratic Caucus assured me, and instructed me that if we ever got that it would be need-based.
Mm.
And a major portion of that would go to need-based. And that's the kind of mindset I had. I've said that at every meeting that I had. That if you ever get there, the percentage of that money will have to go to need-based. We'll be trying to get need-based into the formula for a long time. Hope that helps. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jennifer Fletcher. Representative Hughley, I would like to thank you for the very reasoned explanation of the heartbeat bill and express my deep, deep regret that Georgia, if not already, will become the laughing stock of the nation about the unenforceability of this bill. It's a sad, sad day for Georgia. I certainly hope that we will continue to support the reproductive rights of women, not changing one's mind, but to keep abortion safe and legal, especially in the cases of rape and incest. I also want to applaud you all for passing the $1 million apportionment for maternal depression. I have, as a healthcare provider for many, many years, I have seen the ravages of postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis. It's a great deal more than baby blues. So thank you very much for that. Please keep pushing for the rights of women. We need you so desperately, and we thank you for what you've done already. Thank you.
Okay.
Step to the plate on it for you. Trust me. Yes.
Yeah, my name is Darian Torber. I was wondering about the transportation bills we're talking about. Do they have any particular focus on the type of transportation they are utilizing? And then kind of the second part of that, were there any other proposals given for reduction in car cluster or any focus given to environmental impact?
The first part of it, I'll tackle, and I'll let her tackle the environment. But most of the smaller towns, transit, these buses, larger cities, light rail. And depending on the revenue source, and we started off with the revenue source being Uber and Lyft and taxi services. They will be taxed, provided the necessary funds. And I didn't realize, well, I did realize, but there's so much ridership on those three categories that I think it was 50 cents. And I said, what is 50 cents gonna do? And I found out that a lot of 50 cents. Out there, and it was generating, you know, when you think about 50 cents, you don't think about generating millions and millions of dollars. There's a lot of ride sharing going on around here. So that's where the funding was going to come from, start, kind of jump start. Every time we do this, we know that the state is going to have to do something. We put money in the budget this year for ATL. We had said that it was going to provide its own resources, but we know the first time in 2015, in my memory, of putting money in the state budget for transit. The only reason transit has become elevated is because of the NCR, State Farm, the major 4,500 companies are coming. Now they say, what is your transportation plan? What is your transit plan for your community? And if you don't have that, I've said this many times, transportation won't guarantee economic development. But I guarantee you, without transportation, will not have.
Right.
So that's how the transit and transportation work. He'll be back in the session. What about the environment?
Well, the main thing on the environment is that you all know that if there's fewer cars on the road, then the air's cleaner.
Mhm.
There's less fuel consumption, so most of the environmental groups are very much in favor of the light rail, mass transit opportunities being taken out into the state and not just clustered in Atlanta.
And we taxing those scooters. I don't know if y'all seen all the scooters in Atlanta. Oh, yeah. I mean, 5, 10, every corner, different Amber Brown.
Right.
Like a little bug, you know, little scooter. But scooters, and now the city council is starting to maintain, but it's starting to monitor,
Mhm.
and they're gonna have to be licensed, because people have gotten hurt. And I don't know, a lot of y'all in Atlanta can see these scooters, I think they're everywhere. Two-wheelers. You have to watch how you walk in and down the sidewalk, but they know what kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Norm Easterbrook, Director of River Center. Thank you all for what you do. Appreciate it very much. I wonder if you could lend any insight on kind of what went on with the state sales tax exemption for music theater production tours originating in the state. I know it didn't pass, but sure would be great if we could make that happen.
We tried. In fact, the music industry tried. We had some music day, maybe 3 weeks ago. In fact, Dallas Austin from Columbus was one of the 5 or 6 people that came, and they now have a music entertainment caucus of the house. Right. And I'm gonna join that call.
Of course.
But they want long trips. but they wanted to do it like we do it for the film industry. But you know, there's still some pushback on the film industry. We're not generating so much revenue. People will push back on that, but people kind of, when you said the word 10 billion, it gets people attention. But and I know you're shooting at the fact that the threshold is so high.
Right.
Because I think the threshold is at $500 million for production.
It needs to be at $500,000.
What is it now?
It's much higher than that.
Oh, I thought it was at $500,000.
Yeah, it needs to be at $500,000.
I thought the law was $500,000.
What is it?
It's higher than $500,000.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Well, only one play qualified this year, and that was Hamilton. That was the only one that had a threshold of what $500,000. So, we got to lobby a little bit more.
Yeah.
We got.
Yeah, because.
Anytime you do the Texas City, you got to kind of, you got to pit it.
Right.
Right.
And lobby a little bit.
Well, we'd be happy to do that. We had 4 projects in the works, and this year we got 1. That sales tax credit would have helped with those other 3, and it would have meant millions for Columbus community.
Well, we for you. Trust me.
So it would be terrific to make that work.
In fact, on the interim, I'm on the delegation, we're trying to get a meeting with Ron Stevens. He's the key. He and what's his name?
Brett Harrell.
And Matt Dollar. Brett Harrell, Matt Dollar, and Ron Stevens. We know those 3 names. We can have some discussion. And we might try to get those 3 down here. So
We have a venues coalition in the state that can help with that as well.
that's the key. Fox Theater, Savannah, Macon, all of them are collaboration. If it's just one Columbus, River Center, Hawkins, Florida, they're gonna carry me, you will carry me. There we go.
Now, of course, we don't mind doing that.
That's the problem with that would be a lot.
Yes, sir.
So,
Question now. Question.
well, more than one maybe, or just, well, one thing I want to say is like, this session showed that a lot of the General Assembly has a genuine antipathy and hatred for Georgia cities, especially in regards to how they're making this bid to take over the airports, as well as how they worked with the Republicans in Gwinnett County to, like, especially in the Gwinnett County Board of Commissioners, to place that referendum in May instead of November, when there would be more people coming for on election day. So I was, of course, it was going to fail because of that. Also, the hate crimes bill got defeated in the Senate committee after it got passed by the House for the first time, and it was inclusive of sexual orientation and gender identity. But also this one, and I'm also disappointed by a lot of the same bills that you were also disappointed by, abortion, blah, blah, blah. But one bill that I also saw was the one that that's mandated that teachers and principals inform the police about unruly behavior or behavior that would violate, if I'm correct, a previous piece of legislation that I mentioned to you before that prohibits disrupting school and what have you, and informing police and school resource officers in order to that could potentially put more students into or prison, the prison complex. So because of that, it got so much support from other Democrats, but especially from Republicans in the House.
What you're talking about was part of the school safety bill.
Okay.
And so they put it in a bill called school safety.
Mm-hmm.
People were reluctant, some people, not us, but some people were reluctant to vote against the bill that was called school safety.
School safety.
And the provision that you're talking about is that they have to have a designated officer.
Mm-hmm.
And that officer is required to report any suspicion of any criminal activity.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no guidelines regarding what kind of crime you're talking about. If I steal Debbie's pen, right? So.
Wow. Right.
So, you know, because it's a requirement, that is what caused so much concern, particularly in the Democratic Party. You know, there were no guide rails or parameters regarding that. And they said, well, it will be up to the principal or whoever they designate. It will be up to their discretion, and these people would not do such a thing. But we already know the statistics tell us the children who are most likely to go from the classroom to the poorhouse and on to prison. And so that was why, he did. He came and visited us.
Yeah, the town hall meeting that we asked him, oh, just come down one day, Brother Hugh called and said, young man is here.
He came on crossover day.
Sure did.
Yeah, sure did.
That's not a good day.
I told him, if you want to see what we do, you might want to come on crossover.
Go ahead, Mom.
And the question, the reason why I asked that, you have your jails that's filling up with veterans. The veterans are, you know, some of them have PTSD and other medical conditions that would cause them to act out of character. And they are ending up in jail. A lot of them are losing families because of, and just so many other things are generated from their health or mental status, I would say, because that's the largest piece.
But we have the Veterans Court Board, right?
Yes, and
So
but
that's
is there
not working.
money going to that? That is working. But is there more money put into it because there are more veterans being pulled off the street now because of different things that's going on? And I was wondering about housing, and I could go down the list. I don't want to do that.
But the only thing we can do is really is ancillary. When it comes to funding, absolute budget, we have no, it's strictly federal.
Right.
And we've done some things, because we have a military affairs committee that part of it. And we travel on straight and things. The big thing we try to do for veterans is financial.
Yeah.
And that's for exempt retirees pay.
Yes.
For the state of Georgia, they encourage more retirees to stay in Georgia and in Columbus. And our legal counsel won't allow us to do it. We created another class of citizens.
Well, the Veteran Court has not been in effect for very long.
Yes.
And so that was the first response to what you're talking about, the problems that veterans have. And we have not gotten feedback from that initiative yet. So if it's not working, or if it needs to be tweaked, or if there's some other things that need to be done, we need to have a conversation about that. Our veteran expert has left us.
Yes,
Mhm.
that was the question for Mr. Harbison.
But, you know, it's important because no one of us knows as much as all of us. So it's important for you all to help educate us about issues that you're particularly concerned about, because we have a general idea
Mhm.
about things, but if it's something very specific that's going on that we may not know about, it'd be helpful to us if you let us.
Mhm.
Just found part of that. We have a medical facility that is scheduled for the Columbus area, the old Blue Cross building on Warm Springs Road. Now, it's very quiet. We don't hear anything about a start date or a projected finish date on building that facility, that Veterans Center there. And what's happening, you have a lot of older veterans that cannot climb onto the vans that transport them to Tuskegee, Montgomery, and other health facilities. And they try to drive over to Montgomery, Tuskegee, and they are having accidents by the tens of every day. Two of them that I know personally has been, that was fatally injured. And one on a motorcycle on 280 in front of Walmart not too long ago, that was in the news. And another one on Highway 80 going out through Crawford. He ran out, they have construction going on out there. He ran into the creek out there, whatever that ravine is. And this is just too hard-hearted, you know, it's just bad that this has to happen. Even if we had to just get another vehicle that will get these older veterans inside them so they don't have to climb up on the van or bus or whatever the case might be. And that's what I'm seeing, that's what I'm hearing. And there's something need to be done about the transportation. I'll make sure I get in touch with Mr. Harbison, just let him know that piece is out there. That's something that we need to just get with some officials and just look into the transportation of veterans.
Current Commission Andrew Ferguson. Okay, well, and you think state rules slow.
Mm.
You try to deal with federal government.
Gosh.
We put the money in even the courts 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And that is about as big as you can get in Georgia courts now. And the federal government is now coming with that part. And so we've been talking about it through two governments. So thank you for that part. We support that.
And I appreciate that.
A couple more, and then we're going to call this.
I'm Susan Stevenson. On this defeat of the rural transportation folks, what was the problem?
Susan, I tell you, once we shut the corn, so to speak, the State Department of Transportation was opposed to it.
Why?
Well, because we were.
Taking away their authority, don't tell
What we've been doing is consolidating all transit into a department of mobility. So that you can see where everything is in one. Right now, we have transit agencies through all these. Yes. You know, health departments have transit, community affairs has transit, labor department has transit. So we're gonna create an office of mobility, department of mobility, which was been, all transit was in this department. When you do that, then you take it away from the biggest transit of all is the Department of Transportation. So there's some of their resources would have been readjusted to another agency. And then there was some political differences between the House and the Senate. That happens a lot. That the wrong thing is said, or the right person is not touched. very minor thing, a very childish thing, but they do want it.
Mm-hmm.
They do have it.
That was so nice.
Sorry for the live stream.
Try to get something to do to one more, then we call it a night. Anybody got anything? Yes, sir.
This is the demonstration of the night, probably. Tom Johnson Jr. I've just been really concerned about the new voting machines coming in, and I've sat through 2 presentations on how, in one of our state evaluations, I think it's for Lieutenant Governor, the votes got shifted, like evaporated or shifted even to somebody else. And with the new voting system, is there a way to tell if that actually happens, or is it still just sort of like trying to cut costs with a number?
This is the co-chair of the Voting Rights Caucus.
All right.
Well, let me just say this, the bid hasn't gone out for what the system is gonna look like, but based on what we've been told that you can expect in the system, there is no, it's not gonna account or adjust for that. Because you're starting with the same type of system. And the only way to eliminate what happened in the lieutenant governor's race, because there was a huge drop off between the governor's race and the lieutenant governor's race, and there was no explanation as to why. That's why the only thing that we can do is to go back and look at uniform administration of our elections, and that's what we're going to be talking about, because we can't go and ring the bell on the equipment because that's already been decided. They're going to go out for the RFP. It's going to be the touchscreen. The ballot will be printed out. It's going to be a barcode, and that's going to be inserted into the optical scanner. It's going to be better than what we have now. But you still have some of the deficiencies that we have in the current system. The best system would have been for us to go to the hand-marked paper ballot, which we're embarking upon a system that nobody really has.
Right.
We did the same thing when we went to the touch, when we bought the default touchscreen. We went to a system that nobody really had. Now, the people use some of the systems, but they're not using it statewide like what we're talking about. And so we're going to be pioneers in this particular adventure, and that's why it's even more important that we have standardized processes in place so that we can make the best of the system that we're going to be utilizing.
Can I ask you just one quick question, Judy Burlett? What concerns me is the barcode that you were talking about, that's at the bottom of the ballot. Is that generated as the person votes, or is it already printed on there before they vote?
The barcode is supposed to be a description of what the choices that the person has made.
Okay.
And
So it's
so,
supposed to be generated as the person votes, but we don't know what it says because it's written in Chinese.
well, it's in barcode. Yeah, the information is embedded in the barcode. So the information security folk tell us that there's no way to safeguard that because of the way that is done. They've had professors from Georgia Tech come and talk to us, and they were cybersecurity experts, and they pretty much said that, anything you put on a computer can be tampered with.
Wow. No.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.